And I come back to you now, at the turn of the tide.
I am Razio.
Well, hello again, you beautiful bastards. It sure has been a while, around 3 months to be exact, and I'm back from my summer acting gig, which took me out of town and away, and I had to get a whole new place when I got back, and needless to say, I finally got somewhat settled in my new home, and I'm ready to dive back into the hellscape that is the modern interwebs and the gaming world and MMO genre as a whole. And while I am looking forward to raid leading again here in the upcoming Season 3 of World of Warcraft and the War Within, getting back on track with things, as well as rant and complain as I always do about the AAA game industry on this channel here, I wanted this video to be a little different since it's the first video I've made since I've been gone, to tackle a subject my channel has touched on many times in the past in passing, as well as has practically every other gaming channel that even exists. So that subject is nostalgia. Nostalgia ain't what it used to be. That's the joke, isn't it? So why am I talking about this here and now? Well, continue to listen, my dystopian afflicted friend, and it will all soon become clear. You see, as I was off acting in the summer rep theater, I was brainstorming about what video I wanted to make when I got back from my gig and actually had the time to do anything other than work, memorize lines, go to rehearsals and perform, which is pretty much all I've been doing, pulling 88-hour weeks for the last 3 months, but I digress. And I decided that I was going to start a new series of videos about how once beloved franchises have fallen from grace and are now infamous for being disappointing pieces of shit. The first series on my list to tackle was, believe it or not, Final Fantasy. And while I was writing the script for said video, I realized how nostalgic I was for these old games and the role nostalgia itself plays into why so many things, and not only the gaming world, but in society as a whole, seem to be just simply awful these days. And while the first video about the fall of the Final Fantasy series is coming, believe that, I felt it was more appropriate to make this video first, tackling nostalgia and the role it plays in all of this. You see, dear viewer, while I was out gallivanting in the acting world once again professionally for a company that I had acted for in 4 previous seasons during my acting career, it struck me that so many things have changed since the last time I was there. The last time being 10 whole years ago. The acting world, like every other community and entertainment medium, had changed so much since then. And while I still loved the craft and performing as much as I did when I was, young, bright-eyed, and bushy-tailed in the industry, I saw how corrupt and retarded the culture around theater has become. Narcissism, self-importance, identity politics, and of course, a cult-like atmosphere had infiltrated every aspect of it. And the work itself and the art form had, for the most part, been forgotten. Much like it has nearly in every other art form that we know about to date. I mean, fuck, how many videos have I made about the woke culture and gaming, for example? At least 3 or 4? I mean, this got me thinking about how much something else had changed that is far more impactful to how I see everything. The thing that changed the most? Myself. I had changed. And while pondering on how much and in what ways I had transformed over the years, it struck me about how this summer, the summer of 2025, for those of you who are watching this in the future, actually marked the anniversary of a lot of things that I hadn't realized or really thought about in a long time. It had been exactly 20 years since I started my acting career, 20 years since the beginning of my first romantic relationship. That was the first time I ever fell in love, arguably the only time. And 20 years since I tested for and got my first dan in the Japanese martial art I practice. I look back to who I was then and realized not only how much the world as a whole had changed in the last 2 decades, but even more so how I have become practically unrecognizable from who I was back then. Now, at this point, you may be thinking to yourself, all right, Raz, nice story. You should tell it at parties. But what the fuck does this have to do with gaming or the awful state of the industry and how most of the games that come out now suck ass from a straw? And to that, my chronically online friend, I say, everything. Let me explain. You see, since the creation of my YouTube channel, I have made numerous videos over the years about how awful gaming has become. I've talked about the ups and downs of games, especially in the MMORPG genre like World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV, more than others. I've waxed poetic about the good old days of Asheron's Call, Dark Age of Camelot, EverQuest, and others. I've brought up the histories of my first beloved games from my childhood, like, Zelda, Link to the Past, Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy VII, Tactics, Secret of Mana, Super Metroid, etc., etc., etc. And always demonstrating how shit everything is today by comparison. And don't get me wrong. While it's true that modern games have gotten significantly worse than the golden age of the late 90s and early 2000s, I think we fail to recognize how much nostalgia itself plays a role in all of it, and how much we've changed over the years that is making us feel this way. When I thought of this, I really took a step back and not only evaluated how much the industry and the world as a whole has changed since then, but I look at how much I have changed. And by extension, if you think about it, how much we all have changed. I'm sure if you do the same, you'll see a similar picture. Back then, we were more naive, more trusting of the world and the people around us. We still had dreams, ambitions, romantic, idealistic motivations, and most of all, we had hope. All those things hadn't been taken from us and beaten out of us yet by reality and the way the world really works. 20 years ago, I was 22. I had more years ahead of me than behind me. The opposite is statistically true now. And sure, while now I'm far less naive, far more experienced and more grounded, and I've been through so much more, it's come at a cost. I'm far more jaded, far less trusting of others, have a more realistic and somber view of what love actually is.
Doesn't exist, except on paper.
I'm simply just more tired. And shit, it's just part of life. And also part of what happens when you grow up in what is arguably the dumbest time in human history to be alive. Feeling the way we do about the past is just what happens, I guess, when you realize that everything around you, from relationships to politics and everything in between, is fake and gay.
Always has been.
But I digress. We have to keep in mind that gaming itself was also in its youth back then. The revolution of gaming, where it revived, was in the early 80s. Modern gaming, even 20 years ago, was literally in its 20s, as well as we were back then. So what happened? Well, we both kind of grew up. We both became more jaded, lost hope, shattered our dreams, and just wanted more money. And while I will always hold the gaming studios accountable and make videos calling out their lazy, greedy, money-grubbing slop practices, I think it is also just as important to recognize that part of the longing and nostalgia we feel is for ourselves. Not only do we miss the way games used to be and the way they made us feel, I also think we miss who we were back then, more than the games themselves. In the time we lived in, that's what we missed. Because in a way, not only were games better back then, so were we. In many cases, so were our lives. And what do I mean by all of that? Well, we were better at living, I think, living in the moment, better enjoying life and being grateful for what we had. And we need to accept that while we can vote with our dollar and do everything we can to make modern games better and hold the companies that make them more accountable, we can never get back who we were back then, no matter what we do or how hard we try. And so part of us will always be more jaded and numb now to everything than we ever were back then. And I think when we accept that, and because of that, things will never exactly be the same as they were ever again, we can start to be a little less angry, a little less jaded, and enjoy the classics and the games we do have now that are good enough a little bit more than we currently do. Does that make sense?
Fuck.
Nostalgia can be so alluring, but that's the trap of it. It's untouchable. You can wander back to old neighborhoods you grew up in, walk up to the old front doors of the houses where your old best friend or your ex-girlfriend used to live, and it almost feels like if you knocked on the door, their young version of themselves would answer, as if nothing had changed and no time had passed at all. It feels the same when we boot up an old classic game or log into a classic version of a favorite MMO. But one thing we quickly discover about both of these examples I just stated is that it's fleeting. It is really gone, and nothing we do or say can or will ever take us back or let us relive or recapture those moments. And in a way, that is what is so beautiful about it, and what made those games and those times and who we were back then so special. They, like everything else in this world, are and were temporary. But anyway, guys, those are my thoughts. I am back. As you can see, my entire world has changed. Little Raz is gone. Rest in peace, brother. I'm done with my acting gig for the summer. I'm working again, and I'm going to be bringing some streams again and more content to my YouTube channel now that I've got free time. So that's the idea. I'm reevaluating my stream schedule right now because how I had it before I left was a little wonky. So just stay tuned. For now, I'll just go live. And if you're part of my Discord, you'll see me go live. Or if you're following me with the bell on YouTube, or you're following me on Twitch, I go live at both places at the same time. Simultaneously, so you can watch either on either platform, and you'll just know when I go live until I have a more concrete schedule set up, because I'm trying to evaluate that with the new season of World of Warcraft that I'm raid leading for. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for welcoming me back. I really appreciate it. We'll see you real soon, and as always, my friends, keep it real.